Okay, plant friend, I know what you're thinking. You saw the title of today's episode, Why Politicians Should Be Gardeners, and you're thinking, has Maria lost her mind? Is she actually going political? This is a podcast about plants and gardening, not politics. And let me reassure you, you are right. This episode, although we will be talking about politicians and gardeners and why I think getting politicians to become gardeners is one of the keys to healing our planet right now. This is not a political podcast. We will not be talking about politics. We will not be talking about sides. I will not be talking about thoughts or feelings in regards to politics. We will be exploring the power of plants and gardening and how it might be one of the tools that our earth, our society needs in order to heal and restore communication. Because plant friends, we have a connection and communication deficiency right now, and I'm here to explore how we might be able to heal it with plants. Welcome to the Growing Joy with Plants podcast, where we not only learn how to care for plants successfully, but how to simply and affordably use our plant babies to cultivate more joy in our lives by doing so. I'm Maria, former plant killer turned happy plant lady, author of Growing Joy, the Plant Lover's Guide to Cultivating Happiness, speaker, podcaster, and most importantly, your new best plant friend. On Growing Joy with Plants, you'll find conversations about houseplant care, gardening tutorials, and wellness through the lens of plants. Plant care is self-care on Growing Joy. Hello, plant friends. Welcome to Growing Joy with Plants. I'm Maria, the host of this podcast, the crazy plant lady, trying to talk about why I think politicians should be gardeners and why I think if everybody had a plant, the world would be a kinder and greener place. If you're new here, welcome. I am so excited to be your new plant friend. And if you're a returning guest, welcome back, welcome home. So honored to be a part of your plant journey. And today I needed to make this solo podcast about something that has really been weighing on my heart lately as I have been witnessing our society go through one of the craziest moments of all time, as I have been witnessing such incredible disconnection, disarray, chaos, overwhelm, hatred, judgment, inability to relate. It's been a tough year, plant friends. And call me crazy, call me naive, but I truly feel in my bones, if we can be taking some of the empathetic practices that we use with our plants, the world would be better. The world would be kinder. There is emotional intelligence that our society is lacking right now that is built by digging in the dirt, by growing, by witnessing cycles of seasons, by watching the miracle of seeds. And today, I really want to dive into what that means and how we can explore this idea. What if leadership were all gardeners? What if everybody in this world gardened or had a houseplant and cared for a houseplant on a windowsill? What could that impact look like, that ripple effect look like for our community? Because in a moment where it feels so chaotic and it feels so desperate and sad, right? I feel like I'm coming out of this season of just feeling so hopeless. This concept has really gotten me feeling really hopeful. So at the top of today's episode, I shared, we have a connection deficiency as far as I see it. We've never been more divided. It's never been harder to listen to someone who has different thoughts and feelings than you do. We've never been more judgmental. The rise of social media has led to the rise of bullying, to the rise of judgment, to the rise of calling out instead of calling in. And it makes me think about our plants, because when I see that my garden has a nutrient deficiency or my houseplant has a water deficiency, I know how to amend the soil or how to water the plant in order to restore that. But it's made me think, okay, well, if our society has a connection deficiency, if our society has a communication deficiency, how do we amend that? Like we would amend the soil or we would water. To me, it's learning to listen on a deeper level, which is something we practice with our plants. To me, it's learning to tend to something, to tend to others in a different way than we've been doing. And we learn how to do that with our plants. To me, it's patience. You need to experience patience when communicating and trying to connect. We have a lot of patience with plants, particularly when you grow seeds. And most important, it's this concept of reciprocity, which I feel like we're really lacking in society, which Mother Nature and the trees and the forests and our gardens and our houseplants are the ultimate examples. They are our ultimate teachers in the power of reciprocity and how important this concept of reciprocity is and how easy it is to lose sight of it when we're living in such a state of activation and a state of fear due to our 24-hour news cycle, due to job insecurity, due to fear and insecurity and everything that we're all moving through. So let's unpack some of the lessons that you learn in your garden, these micro lessons that we can all bring to the world as a macro lesson, right? So yes, this episode is titled, What If All Politicians Were Gardeners? But really, you're a leader in some capacity in your own community. Whether you're the leader of your family, you're the leader of the PTA, you're the leader of your school, you're the leader of a club, an extracurricular activity. Maybe you're a leader at your gym. Maybe you're the leader of all your pets, right? You're a leader of something. You're the leader of your own life. And I think a dramatic shift can happen if we all take ownership of our leadership, but also what that means to be in leadership, in reciprocity, and in community, which, let me tell you, trees are the ultimate example of. So let's go through these ideas that have just been sitting on my heart as I've been getting in my garden and think about how we can use these principles to bring it to the world in a larger way, right? We practice these ideas on these micro levels with our garden, but we do them over and over and over again. So like a muscle, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And if we can practice these things on a micro level, I believe we can bring it to the world in a larger, more meaningful way and start healing all of the division that we are experiencing. So number one, the key to healing this communication and this connection deficiency that we have is listening on a deeper level. And there is no other hobby, there is no other way that you can practice listening on a different level than with your garden, because your plants cannot talk to you. They cannot bark at you. They cannot meow at you if they're not feeling well. They cannot yell, "Mommy, Daddy, help me. I'm not feeling well." You have to tune your ear to the frequency of plants in a much more sensitive way than anything else around you. And when you are able to routinely tune your ears to the frequency of plants so that you know how to communicate with them, how to give them what they need, that is a skill and a muscle, emotional intelligence that is going to absolutely change your life. And it's going to be able to help you look at people who might not be communicating with you the way that you'd want them to. It's going to be able to have you look at people who probably don't even have the same views as you do, but it's going to be able to have you look at them in a much more empathetic and emotional way. Because when we're working with our plants, we're connecting with our intuition, we're connecting to our observation, we're connecting to our empathy and our emotions, right? It takes all of those things to show up to our garden on a day-to-day basis, or to show up to our houseplants on a day-to-day basis. And really, when I think about it, intuition, attention, observation, emotional intelligence, empathy, those are all the things that are lacking in our political climate today, yes, but also in a lot of our local communities, I would assume as well. So how can you tune your ears to a frequency that you've been ignoring? Obviously with your gardens, obviously with your houseplants, but also maybe look at your life as the leader that you are and see how can you open your intuitive sensibilities to be a little bit more perceptive, to be a little bit more empathetic to those around you. And yes, to our politicians, how can you do that as well? I invite you to explore this. Another thing that we practice in this micro level with our gardens that I think is so needed and so lacking in today's society, because we are this instant gratification society right now. We are scrolling all the time. Our phones are eating up our lives. Instant gratification. We can DoorDash something and it can be at our door in 45 minutes. You can Amazon Prime a computer and it get delivered to you within the day. We've never had more resources available at our fingertips, and it has made us impatient. It has cultivated a lack of understanding and consideration. And it is a huge issue because there's no long-term thinking. It's only short-term thinking. We're only looking at what's right in front of us and what's directly affecting us instead of the long-term. I don't know what better teacher for patience is than gardening, and specifically than a seed. You plant that seed and it is germinating on its own timeline. You actually have nothing to do with that seed growing and becoming the expression of what it's supposed to be, right? Gardens teach us patience. We can't yell at our plants to grow at a certain rate. We can't tell our hydrangea to bloom. We can't tell our monstera to unfurl another leaf. We certainly can't tell it what type of leaf to unfurl. I need you to be a fenestrated leaf. I need you to bloom pink. I need you to bloom blue. No, the plant is going to do what it's going to do. We end up being the stewards. And in order to be a steward of the earth, you need to have patience. You need to see the long game. And what I've observed, particularly with politicians and with our government, when terms are short, there ends up being this short, well, what can I do in this moment, instead of what is the long game for our society, for our earth. We need to be taking care and approaching our communities with more of a long-term focus. the way our gardens are. There are seeds that have to wait hundreds of years to be burned in order to germinate. There are seeds, annuals, that bloom and die, and their whole lifespan is a year and they're gone. But they seed their fellow generations, right? And then there are trees that have been around way before we've been born and are going to be around way longer after us. And they're all living in community. So what does that mean for us as leaders of ourselves and leaders of our communities? And what does that mean for us as a society at large? Okay, next up is cycles. We get to live in our gardens in cycles. Nature has seasons: growth, rest, death, rebirth. Growth, rest, death, rebirth. Growth, rest, death, rebirth. Summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. Cycles are inevitable. Seasons are inevitable. And seasons can mean different things to different people, right? You can really like the winter and really not like, and really not like the summer. You could love the winter and you could hate the summer. And in these cycles, everybody gets what they want at some point, trusting that it's always going to be coming back. So when you're in this moment of conflict or perceived failure, how can you explore the seasons and the cycles? Zoom out to really understand what this particular moment means to you. Perspective, really, that's what it is. It's not cycles, it's perspective that we're getting to. I think another huge lesson we learn in our gardens is that we can nurture, but we cannot control, right? I can nurture my plants, but I cannot control them. I can set them up in the environment that they're going to thrive, but it's up to them to do what they're going to do. And as the gardener, as the steward of the land, I have to allow for that plant to be in its sovereignty and do its own thing. I could also set up a gorgeous scenario for seeds to grow, and they're not going to grow. I can't force that seed to grow. I can hope that seed's going to grow. I set the right conditions to support my garden, and then the garden does its thing. I'm nurturing and I'm not controlling it. There is no control in nature. If you think about it, there is so much uncertainty in nature when it comes to the volatility of weather, wind. There's also resilience there. And I wonder, as leaders, what if we explored creating thriving conditions, creating conditions in which everyone can thrive instead of conditions in which we control everyone? Because it feels like we've lost the way on both sides. Once again, this is not political. However, if we take notes from Mother Nature, if we take notes from the garden, it's about nurturing and not controlling. And along those lines, it got me thinking about companion planting. As I'm planting up my summer garden, I'm thinking about the companion plants. And as a gardener, I know that basil and tomatoes go great together. If the basil is with the tomato, they work this really magical thing together where the basil wards off some of the pests that might get the tomato. And obviously they taste really good together. But there's this whole process of companion planting to allow this mini ecosystem where they all kind of fend for each other and protect each other. And if politicians were gardeners, I think they could use this idea of companion planting a little bit better in understanding that you actually need different plants or different people or different thoughts, different ideologies all around you so you can best support each other, right? If I was to monocrop, if I was to just plant an entire pot full of tomatoes, all of those pests are going to descend on that one pot of only tomatoes. And those tomatoes are going to have a much harder time surviving just being monoplanted than if I was to plant them in companion with other plants that actually defend against that pest, actually support them. If I was to plant them with a plant that the tomato could actually lean on as it grows, right? So if I was a politician, I'd be thinking about who can I call into my companion planting to help me survive better, to help better me, and everybody is different. Companion planting is not planting all the same plants together. It's planting a root, a fruit, a shoot, a flower, and an aromatic herb. All of those different things, roots and shoots, they grow completely differently. A carrot grows underground, where a tomato would grow above ground, right? The basil is the aromatic herb. You're going to throw a flower in that companion planting. Maybe you're putting a zinnia or maybe some borage, right? Those are all completely different plants that grow completely differently. They're all here to do completely different things, yet they thrive in community, right? How can we thrive in community more? How can we take this idea of companion planting and bring it into our immediate communities and the greater society to live more effectively. It's my Roman Empire plant friends. So not only do I want to invite all of our politicians to become gardeners, and I'm happy to help them with my 300 episodes of this podcast, I also wanted to take a few lessons from nature in general, right? So when you look at a forest is just the most amazing example of a thriving ecosystem in which everybody works together to survive and thrive, and there's cycles and there's everything that we've talked about, right? What lessons can we take from nature as a society to heal and to become stronger? And I think the number one lesson that we can take is the lesson of the mycorrhizal network, which is actually an underground network of fungi that connects so many plants in the forest underground. So the fungi attach to the roots of all of these different plants, and it's actually this communication network. So mother trees, which are the elder trees in the forest, can actually dump their resources like sugars into the mycorrhizal network, the fungi network, and send sugars and other things that plants need to survive to the younger trees, because the younger trees aren't big enough yet. So they can't reach the top of the canopy where all the sunlight is, where that mother tree is. And so they aren't able to photosynthesize as much. So these mother trees actually dump their resources into the fungi network to help support the other smaller trees around it and also other plants. It's this communication infrastructure. Like, what's our mycorrhizal network? I like to say the internet is, but I don't know. Like, how can we build deeper, richer connections in which we can support each other to thrive, and also when someone is down? I like to think of pollinators as the bridge builders of society. Bees, butterflies, other pollinators, they move between plants, connecting these species, enabling reproduction by their movement. They're really the unsung heroes of our gardens or of the world, because that's how reproduction and food exist, right? It's these pollinators. But the pollinators are really the bridge builders. They're the facilitators. They're the connectors of the world. And they are often unsung. And we know in our community and in our world, literal pollinators are not protected the way that they need to be. There's, massive declines of pollinators around the world. But also in the world, like, who are our pollinators? Who are our bridge builders? How can we support them more? How can we be open and receptive to them? Because they really are the answer to our thriving and surviving. And then the last idea I want to leave you with is something that I've been thinking about a lot as I have personally moved through a season of loss: compost and death and failure as fertilizer. So when leaves die and fall off of a tree, they fall down to the earth and they start to decompose, and they return to the earth as this, actually in their decomposition, very nutrient rich material that returns to the earth and gives the earth all sorts of nutrition for the other plants around it to grow. So if I'm a leaf, I fall off the tree, I decompose, and I return to nutrients that actually feeds that tree. So when we think about loss, or also when we think about failure, instead of it being this final thing, I lost this person, I lost this opportunity, I failed at this thing. What if it's actually this moment of fertilization for our future self, for our future society, right? So when we experience a perceived failure, when we experience chaos, when we experience unrest, when we experience disappointment, how is this actually the fuel that feeds us? How is this the compost that actually enriches our future selves so that we can show up better and bigger and brighter and larger for the future? How can we learn from our mistakes? How can we learn from injustice? How can we learn from error? How can we learn from loss and make it mean something, instead of just letting loss or disappointment or anger freeze you and make you more angry, more devastated? How can we use it to make us more empowered, more excited, more expansive, to actually thrive more? Because in nature, that's what it is. And we are nature. So I threw a lot at you in this episode. Like I said, we didn't talk politics. I didn't say the D word or the R word once. It's really not about that, right? This idea, the way that this idea works, is actually having buy-in from everyone. What if politicians were gardeners? What if all of the leaders were gardeners? What if all of the leaders of all of the communities, what if every single person in the world cared for a plant in a deeply intuitive, connective way, learned patience, learned resilience, learned cycles, learned growth, learned that loss is actually one of the most important things you can do for future growth? What if we all lived life by those principles and made decisions with those principles? What if we built our future to mirror our gardens and our happy and healthy forests? What if, plant friends? That feels so exciting and special. And this has just been on my heart. And so I'm happy to bring it to you. Please let me know what you think. Thank you for holding space for me to share this thought with you. I hope it inspired you. If this episode did inspire you, I'd love for you to share it with other leaders of your community. Hey, maybe you even share it with your politicians. Once again, this isn't an episode about politics, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm honored to be sharing this with you. And don't worry, we will be back to plant care episodes as programmed next week. Love you. Keep growing joy. Plant friend, thank you for tuning in today. It means so much to me that I get to be part of your planty journey. If you like what you heard, make sure you're subscribed to the show so you never miss an episode. We have so many incredible interviews and solo episodes on incredible houseplant and gardening topics that you will not want to miss this year. And while you're over there in the podcast player subscribing, why don't you click over to the review section of Growing Joy with Plants and leave us a review. Reviews are tremendously helpful for the growth of the podcast, so thanks in advance. If you're looking for more opportunities to grow as a plant parent with Growing Joy content, we've got so many options for you. First, I highly recommend you taking the Plant Parent Personality Test. It's free, it's super fun, it takes 3 minutes to complete. At the end of the test, you're going to get your plant parent personality profile and a curated list of plants, projects, and podcast episodes that are right up your alley, tailored just for you and your lifestyle, inspired by your results. The links are in the show notes. If you're looking to uplevel your plant parent game, I have so many free downloads on my website that I think could help you, like the Understanding Natural Light download or 9 different ways to green up your office space. If you'd like to support the show monetarily and help me bring the show to as many people as possible for free, you can head to our Patreon link in the show notes to learn more about our offerings. And finally, I invite you to come hang out with me and continue the planty conversation on social media on Instagram and TikTok. I'm Growing Joy with Maria. My DMs are always open if you have requests for topics or ideas for the show. Thank you again for listening. It is truly my honor and delight to help you keep blooming and keep growing joy.